Welcome home. In this podcast, we venture into what it means to be a leader in this new world. Human, flawed but working on things, and forever changed by using our intuition to guide us. I'm Adelina East, founder of Transformational Healing and mentor to those running soul-based businesses. Join me to receive transformational healing, tips to dive more deeply into your unique spiritual gifts, and to hear great conversations with other entrepreneurs in spirit. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Cosmic Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Adelina East. I am a therapist. I work with internal family systems, EMDR, and my own modality, transformational healing, to help lead people towards guiding themselves, something that I feel we are all capable of doing. I'm so excited to be with you here today because I have a really special guest to share with you. I was poking around Instagram, as I do, and I was looking up kinesiology. It's a new topic for me. I started seeing this herbalist who was really into it. He started talking to me about it. And I came upon this incredible profile of someone named Chelsey Power. Some of you have written in about Chelsey Power and have asked me to check her out, to have her on the podcast. And I felt like that was such a kismet moment to find her on my own, as I've been hearing from all of you that you want more of her. So I'm really excited to talk to her today. And if you are unaware, Chelsey is a somatic therapist, kinesiologist, holistic practitioner, facilitator, writer, mentor, and the founder of Mana Temple Studios in Melbourne, Australia. Chelsey's focus is on nervous system education, health, and regulation, and she uses her expertise in somatic and body-centered practices to help clients address the root causes of their challenges. I am so excited to introduce you. Hello. Thank you so much for being with us today, Chelsey.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yay. So tell us a little bit of your story. How did you find somatic kinesiology? How did you find all of these practices?
I think, you could say that my journey into what I do now was really a moment of divine intervention, I suppose. It comes from a moment in my life of great pain and trauma. I was already in the body working arts. I was studying that and exploring hands-on healing. But my life took a turn when my little one, my youngest, he was around 3, he was hit by a car. And so in that moment, I, looking back, fractured terribly. And I wasn't doing well. I needed support. And given that I was into alternative therapies, I started looking around for someone who could help me. Okay. And I found a wonderful kinesiologist who ended up being my mentor, Kamina. That's the beginning of me being introduced to kinesiology. I went in to help with what was PTSD at the time. Okay. And I remember just laying on her table, having no idea what I was in for, reading about it and being like, that sounds really cool. I'll let my body, heal and work its process. And then just surrendering to the work and listening to her as she would go through what was coming up for my body, and with no talking at all, understanding, yes, this makes sense, and yes, this makes sense, and this is what I feel like, and this is where it is in the body. And that was my introduction to kinesiology. And I was like, wow, I need more of this in my life. So my journey into where I am now has really had a lot to do with me healing myself alongside. So learning modalities for me, and then wanting to do more and understand it more, it then just cascaded into one modality after the next, working with people in a specific way. Now we're looking at almost 10 years later, where I'm not processing, PTSD anymore, and I'm not really processing my own trauma, although that's something that we are managing, forever. I feel there's always more layers. And now I'm guiding people through, perhaps where I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's been quite a journey. If it wasn't for that accident with my son, I would not be here today.
How is your son now?
He's fine.
Great.
Totally fine. Feels like a superhero. Nothing wrong.
Kids are so resilient.
Oh, absolutely. And they bounce. So he is
Yeah.
fine. It was a moment in time for him, maybe it was 6 months of intense healing and his own trauma that he went through. But for me as the mother, I spent years,
I bet.
working through that. And what came up through working through PTSD is that I had underlying complex PTSD as well.
Right.
And so I had to work through all of that
Mm-hmm.
and understanding how my body was holding a lot of that trauma, I think is what has helped me in my work now.
Yeah. So I'm sure this is not a new book for you, but I talk about it on this podcast a lot. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score,
Yeah,
just because I find it to be such a great cornerstone of the kind of work that you do, where you get to work with people and work with their bodies to let go of the PTSD
absolutely.
or to release. So tell us a little bit about how it works. Like, let's imagine I am coming into your studio for the first time. How does it
Yeah.
work?
So I work very differently than your regular somatic therapist or your
Yes.
regular kinesiologist. So I am two in one, which is why I call it somatic kinesiology, which
Yeah.
confuses people at time, which I understand. I've sort of shortcut it into one word.
Okay.
So if you were my client, you would come in and there is a component of talk therapy. So
Okay.
this is more about me understanding what it is that's going on for you. And
Hmm.
I am listening to the words that you're using. I'm listening to how much, I guess, awareness and dialogue you have around your emotions.
Okay.
And I'm also getting to feel into your edges or into how I can best work with you. So there's a lot of understanding that comes from me as you talk really about, what's brought you in today. But
Yeah.
I'm doing all this work in the background.
Hmm.
As I begin to feel into your edges around what's challenging you, where some other issues are that we can work on later, if this is a right fit for you, how much language do you have around your emotions? How much do I need to assist you in that? That's quite a long conversation, and that happens over many sessions,
Right.
maybe.
Yeah.
When we move on to the table, we're working in a different way. As I say to my clients, in this moment when we talk, I'm using your mind to sort of understand how you think, feel,
Hmm.
and process.
Hmm.
When we move on to the table, I'm working with your body. How does your body tell that story? What are the other stories that are, hidden in your body or stored in your body that your mind is not aware of, and vice versa?
Okay.
How disconnected or different is your stories in your mind to your body? That gives me an indication of how fractured a client is
Right.
and uh, how outside their body they may be.
Oh, wow.
And then, yeah. So
Okay.
that in order for us to heal, and the foundation of my work to bring a client into alignment is to have full body, mind, heart, body connection.
Yeah. It's so hard to get there.
Oh, absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
why this work isn't easy, right? But we need
Yeah.
all of these parts of our bodies or our beings online
Yeah.
for us to process. I don't need them online all the time. It might be one thing that we're working with today. In
Yeah.
kinesiology, we're always led by the body.
Hmm.
Somatic therapy is the same. So, what does the body have to tell us?
Hmm.
Whilst I may have an idea, let's say, for an example, a client comes in and they want to work with their relationship around their mom, they've had a recent activation and this client wants to work with that. That's
Hmm.
fine. I might get them on the table and there may be something around birth trauma, her own birth trauma of her daughter that comes up instead.
Right.
We go with the body.
Hmm.
Overall, we are working with what the challenge is, but the body has a different way sometimes, which is divine, which is right. And that's how we follow the path.
I love that you said that because I agree with you so much. I think one of the most empowering things that can happen in a session for me as a therapist is when we start the session already acknowledging that we're probably going to use some IFS tools, or maybe we're going to use some transformational healing tools, but we do a body scan first to see what is going on. So, like, for example, a client will come in and they want to work on a specific trauma that happened with their child, maybe. But during the body scan, they are talking about their shoulder and how much their shoulder hurts. And it's like, okay, what's on your shoulder? Do you see something there? Can you visualize anything on your shoulder? And oftentimes a different thing will come out. But I think that because our body is the thing that's interfacing with the exterior world all the time, it gives us that extra bit of information that we really need. We can all get really heady and say, like,
Yeah,
oh, this is the
absolutely.
thing I need to deal with. I know in my head, this is the thing I need to deal with. But when your body has a different plan, you kind of just have to go with it, you know?
Yeah, correct. And I think when we come from a headspace, it's also what we want to deal with. So we're taking charge, which
Right.
we've been doing all our life,
Mm-hmm.
whilst in the background, our body has been storing.
Right.
So I find, and this is how I say to my clients, if something comes up different on the table, that's okay. The body will push forward what it needs assistance with now, what
Yeah.
it's ready to deal with now,
Yeah.
what may be the easiest and in most alignment to process now.
Yeah.
So we may need to clear some of this stuff that's coming up for you that feels annoying or minuscule or frustrating, so that we
Yeah.
can get to the deeper issue that is really giving you a lot of pain.
Yeah.
We've got to be patient with our bodies. A lot of us already have this really um, frustrated relationship with our body. Our mind tells our body off all the time. No, don't feel that.
Yep.
You're not allowed to do that. Put
Mm-hmm.
that aside. I want to do this. And so, in this space, while we are using the mind at the beginning of our session, we're also teaching the mind in how to be quiet when we come to the table, that it can
Yeah.
rest,
Yeah.
that you can trust. Let's trust the body's wisdom in what it needs to work through. It's okay. Our mind is like our guard dog all the
Yeah,
time.
that's true. Yeah. It puts the guardrails on also to
Yeah,
say, like, nope, we're not going to touch that. Let's do this other thing that's more tied to what's happening today.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
always there to protect us, but it can be a little rogue, well, a lot rogue.
Yeah. True.
And so when it comes to the table, um, it's time for the mind to rest, and it's time for the body to learn that it's safe to come out and
Yeah.
to be seen, that the mind isn't going to kind of snap and shut it down.
Right.
And the more that we do that, the better chances of us coming online are,
Mm-hmm.
mind
Very
and
true.
body. So when we can create a harmonious relationship between the two, but that takes practice and it takes a lot of
Yes.
support.
Yes. And I think it takes having a practitioner like you who can kind of guide us there. I,
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm all about the heal your nervous system stuff. And I mean, I will read any book about healing your nervous system. I think it's so important. But I do think there are certain crises points in our lives where we really need a guide to show us, like, how can I connect mind, body, and spirit again? Because I genuinely can't do it from here. I can read all the books in the
Absolutely.
world and I genuinely can't do it.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I really believe that healing should be done in connection.
Yeah.
Right. We've been struggling all our lives anyway. When we're in a crisis or when we're unpacking or learning something, if we are reading all the nervous system books to heal ourselves, we are in pain already. We do not have to carry that alone. And I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe that healing should be done with support, in connection, in
Yeah.
co-regulation with someone who's safe.
Yeah.
It's not up to us to heal ourselves independently, carry our pain on my own. We've been doing it already.
All our lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
So
also think there's really something to be said for community healing. Um, if you can find, and I don't tell everybody to find the right guide. I think there are times for guides and times for DIY. But I think it's always, always a time for community because some of that co-regulation and some of that, for lack of a better word, love, like we need love to heal. That can also come from community supports. And then also, if you get to a point with the person who's helping you guide your healing process where you feel like that relationship has served its purpose, it's been wonderful, you're feeling strong enough to go it alone, you still do need that community support to keep going it alone, you know?
yeah, absolutely.
Um, and I think that's something that has gotten so lost. In my work, I see the loneliness epidemic so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely.
It's like unreal. Um, I don't know how long you've been practicing, but I feel like there was a world before 2020 and there's a world
Yeah,
after 2020. And
yeah.
people are just like beyond lonely since 2020.
I
It's a
think
problem.
so. It is an absolute problem. And also being alone within their own family units too. So there's
Mhm.
disconnection within relationships. That is so evident. And
Mhm.
that is painful when you're in the presence of other people, but you are still alone.
Right. Right.
So yeah, yeah. People need to learn how to connect. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes I wonder if, the pandemic really pressed down on all the tools that we didn't have.
Mhm. I think
Uh,
that's true.
Put us
It
in a
brought them
closed
to
space.
light.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. And a lot of the stuff that we're working with is very evident, or it's modeled or reflected within our relationship. So, put our love and our problems close together for a long period of time, it's going to combust.
It is. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about how your work has changed since you brought in the kinesiology part to your already existent somatic knowledge and
Yeah.
practice.
Well, I started with kinesiology and then somatics
Oh,
came in
I'm
later.
sorry. Excuse
But
me.
that's okay.
Okay.
Same, same.
Yeah.
Um, I think so. I was in kinesiology for a really long time, and I am always hungry for knowledge.
Hmm.
And I could see that while I loved it, not that it wasn't enough, it just wasn't enough for me.
Okay.
So I was noticing that there were different things that were going on with my clients that I didn't have the information to. I needed to learn more. What did that look like? I don't know. I tried a lot of different things and brought them all in. I think what it taught me, which is different, is more the connection. So talking to people. Kinesiology is very it can be in two separate worlds, the client and the practitioner. The
Okay.
client can be surrendering and the practitioner is doing a lot of the work.
Okay.
Somatics is really about bringing us in together. So that was the component
Yeah.
that came in for me. And also understanding the body in a more sensing way, a felt sense way. That's something
Okay.
that is in kinesiology. So that brought a different element into it. So whilst I may notice, or the body may show me that there is, let's say, fear in the stomach,
Hmm.
kinesiology would be able to process that through particular, steps and processes. But when you bring somatics in, you open a dialogue with the client. Like,
Okay.
can you feel this here? What does this feel like to you?
Yeah.
Can you describe it? What do
That's
you
very
need?
cool.
Yeah. And so there's this whole other space that opens, that brings the client in to also tuning into that part of their body and being like, hey, oh, I didn't know that that was there. But now that you say that, actually, that's a feeling that I have all the time. Like
Okay.
you've just gotten used to it. And then you peel the layers back. And so that's how it's changed for me. It's become more in depth into the emotional layers in the body.
So what would some responses be? Like if you're touching someone's stomach and you feel the fear there and you say, what's happening there? What would an example response be?
So the most common emotion that I see stored there with clients is anxiety, is the
Yeah.
words that comes up.
Yeah.
What comes after that in my work is, what is anxiety? What is that to you?
Yeah.
Right? A lot of the time, the language after that question is missing. Like, well, I don't know. It just feels yuck. I feel sick.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring in some language. I have this wonderful chart on my wall that has, around 100 emotions or 100 words for
Oh,
emotions.
okay.
So I'll go, okay, what does this feel like? Point to the one where this word describes it most.
Yeah.
Right? What you might find is disgust,
Okay.
anger,
Okay.
scared,
Okay.
worry. And so you take one word and we blow it up.
Okay.
Tell me everything that fits under there for you.
Oh, wow.
And then yeah.
So your
So
sessions are like 9, 10 hours?
yeah, you can do it really quick. And
Okay.
um, the more you work with a client, and again, my job is to understand them,
Yeah.
to bring the best out in them. There's no point in me going down a path where they don't understand what I'm talking about. So
Mhm.
I may only, and I can see how hard they're working, only 3 emotions fit for them right now. I can
Okay.
sense that there's more, but
Yeah.
I'm also reading their body as to when they're sort of meeting their edge.
Okay.
Like, okay. But some are like, once you give them like the chart, they're like, yes, 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 yes. That's how I
Okay.
feel. When you can see what's underneath the words, so we're working with anxiety in the stomach, you have disgust, worry, helplessness. You then check in with them. You're like, okay, does this, all of that together, what does that feel like? And then you start pulling in sensations.
Okay.
Does this make sense that you would feel this? Yeah. Where you go from that depends on the body. So
Okay.
what do we do with that? Is there another path that we go down? We're always asking the body, can we process this? Is there a memory that needs to be addressed? Sometimes, a lot of the time, not.
Okay.
Yeah. When does this feel activated? So you can ask them with the emotions that they've felt just then in the stomach. When do you feel this the most?
Yeah.
Right. So it might be, um, perhaps when their partner is cold or distant, that
Okay.
comes up for them. Right. And that's
Okay.
about as far as you take it. And you validate that feeling.
Okay.
So it sounds pretty tough. Right? What does that space in your body need? What do you think that you can give that? What's it asking for? A lot of the time, once you start working with a feeling and you start talking about it,
Hmm.
in the background, it starts to dissipate.
Yeah.
So
That's
many of these
awesome.
feelings, they just want to be validated and
Mhm.
seen.
That's
And we might
great.
go back there. Yeah, you may dip in and out, but it really also depends on how much bandwidth the client has in a session. I might close it down if it's starting to open something up.
Okay. Just
You
because
don't
you
ever,
want to keep them focused on one thing.
well, you never want to, so you would know, we could sit all in our feelings
Hmm.
and we could talk all about our trauma, but
Yeah.
you could end up feeling more terrible than you feel better.
Often you do. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And
So
as a
we go,
neuroscientist, that can deepen the neural networks that connect to that trauma too. So it's
yeah.
not always the greatest. Yes.
No. So you dip in, and you
Yeah.
dip out. And understanding the nervous system can help you read a client as to when, again, they're meeting their edges. That's the
Yeah.
most important thing. And then my goal is to bring you into regulation. So how can I regulate you with this there?
Mm-hmm.
Is it in the way of you being regulated? Can I clear it in the body?
Mm-hmm.
Can we breathe this through? Is it open to being let go?
Yeah.
These are the questions we're asking the body all the time
Yeah.
without the mind. So you have to be careful that we don't dip back into turning the mind
Right.
back on. So it's very
Right.
gentle and it's very slow. A lot of the time, it's just hands on or near the body.
Mm-hmm.
It's support that
Mm-hmm.
helps dissipate a lot of these emotions.
That is so very cool. And you said that you work with people online as well.
Yeah, we can work with people online through the talking element is easy. The body work, it becomes different. But as you've heard me talk, a lot of this is me guiding the client
Right.
through.
Right.
And so you just tweak it a little bit where, the hands-on is different, but the
Mm-hmm.
client is able to access hands on their own body. And so I may guide them
Right.
that way.
And I also feel like that's a great skill to have for someone who may have been suffering through sexual assault or things like that, when there are times when you just don't want to be touched.
Yeah,
That would be so
absolutely.
helpful. Yeah.
And I think, that subject in itself is something that probably needs a whole bigger conversation about. But when it comes to those clients, I don't generally use hands-on
Okay.
um, touch for
Yeah.
that reason.
Yeah.
Being trauma informed in this space, you have to be able to read body consent
Mm-hmm.
versus mind
Exactly.
consent. And so I can just be sort of moving my hands in closer to an area of the body, and you can watch the body switch,
Mm-hmm.
tense up, flinch, even just in the smallest bit. And you know that that's a space where you're doing hands off work, or
Right.
they're bringing their own hands in, or perhaps I'm bringing some weight with a somatic sandbag so that there is contact there, but
Yeah.
in a hands off approach.
Oh, that's so interesting. Somatic sandbag. I've never even heard of the phrase.
Yeah, they're these beautiful, different shapes, textured, like a wheat bag.
Yeah.
I guess is the easiest way that you could picture them for the listeners online. I have them in all different shapes, sizes, weights, like I said,
Wow.
textures. And that is what I would bring in when I can't, or it doesn't feel right or necessary for me to put my hands on this client, or they may need a lot of hands on at the same time, and I only have two hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's amazing.
Mm.
So, Chelsey, if we want more information from you, I know you mentioned
Mm,
that you have a workbook that we could access. Can you tell us about that a little?
absolutely. So I wrote this workbook out of, uh, you know, people wanting to work with me, and I'm only one person. I
Yeah.
loaded it with all these somatic tools that you could use on your own that are really safe and gentle. A lot of these somatic exercises are tools that I use here in clinic with people and
Okay.
homework for them as well. It's called Untamed, Unlocking the Sacred Seed of Emotions, and it is targeted at the hips, mostly female pelvic area as well. This is a
Hmm.
really common area for women to store trauma or
Okay.
emotional pain.
Okay.
So our hips are renowned for housing lots of unprocessed emotions
Yeah.
for women. And so this workbook is full of so much information into which emotions store where, how would you work with it, what does it feel like, um, what can I do on my own to bring relief and healing into this space of my body. You can find it on my website, or I've got a few links in my bio on Instagram too. It's not too hard to find.
Good. And we'll link it below here too so people can get it.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for your time today. You are so educational. I'm so excited to learn the term somatic kinesiology. And I think this is going to be a huge help to our listeners. I'm even more grateful that you work online.
Ah, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to these important conversations about cosmic leadership and the changing needs of our times. If you enjoyed this conversation, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also share it with a friend. Join our crew at Adelina East on Instagram or at Adelina East Healing on Facebook. With all the love from every dimension, Adelina.